This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
This call is being recorded.
Hello, and thanks for joining us here. We're here live with Dr. Jeff Werber, your host for the next 30 minutes on Pet Life Radio's live call-in show, Ask the Vets with Dr. Jeff. Live call-in. Call-in is the key word. We want to hear from you. A number of ways to do it. The easiest way is to give us a call. Toll free, 877-385-8882. Once again, 877-385-8882. You can also join us live on Google Hangouts. If you call in, there's a PIN number. And the PIN number, it will link you into us on Google Hangouts here, and that's 11775. It's written down on the opening page here at Pet Life Radio's Ask the Vets with Dr. Jeff. So we'd love to hear from you. We got a couple of calls yesterday. We'd hopefully like to get some today as well. I should say last week. Speaking of last week, first of all, I want to thank our sponsors, Bravecto and More Than a Cone and Save This Life Microchip. But I want to know how everybody's 4th of July was. It's interesting. My dogs, and I have quite a few, are totally fine. For some reason, they just don't seem to be bothered by the fireworks. I guess we've never made a big deal about it with them. We have a loud, crazy house anyway, so I think loud noise is nothing new to them, and they just take it in stride. However, I did get a lot of calls, and it's interesting and sadly, 2 nights ago, I was walking my dogs, and I see a number of people walking down the middle of the street. And this woman stopped me, and she handed me a bright pink piece of paper that this dog was lost. It got out the night on Tuesday night, 4th of July, and has not been found yet. And it was freaked out, a German Shepherd cross, freaked out, made a beeline, got out, fortunately chipped, but unfortunately not wearing any identification, which, as I told you, we talked about this before 4th of July, absolutely. Whenever there's an event, whether it's thunderstorms, whether it's fireworks, whatever it is that might freak your pet out, make sure they have 2 forms of ID. One is external, meaning a tag or an ID collar, and the second, a microchip. So I'm hoping, and as I told them, some of the things they should do in a case like that is to call their microchip registry and make sure their registration is up to date and current, because some of these companies require annual fees to re-register to make sure that the information is current. One of the things I mentioned before I like about Save This Life, it's a one-shot deal. You make the registration at the beginning, and it's good for the rest of the life of the pet. And if you want to change your phone number or add a new address because you moved, no problem. You call them, and it's done for free. So, but that's rare. Most of the companies require an annual fee. So it's very important to make sure in a case like this to call them and to make sure your information is updated, they have you updated, etc. And then the hope is that they will. Another thing I always recommend, when you take your dog to the veterinarian and the dog is microchipped, and it should be, have your veterinarian or one of the staff members re-scan your dog. It just makes total logical sense. The microchips often have a tendency to move, they migrate, and no longer are sitting in that spot that we all use, that universal spot, which is right behind the shoulder blades. So you can have basically a chip that has migrated, and it's a lot tougher to find. And some of these shelters, bless their hearts, they do the best they can, but they are so overwhelmed sometimes with work that they only scan the back of the neck. They won't go over. When we scan a dog at my office, we literally start, of course, at the spot, but then we go around to the lower part of the neck. We go back down the back. We go under the arms. I found microchips under the dog's axilla, under their armpits. So once they start to migrate, they can migrate. And a lot of these places just don't really do a thorough enough job sometimes to scan. So it's always a good idea to have your veterinarian on your annual exam, rescan the dog, make sure you know about where the chip is. And if it really migrates too much, they could take an x-ray. Microchips show up beautifully on an x-ray, and maybe think about removing it and reimplanting it. It's something that can be done easily. It's not a huge problem. Usually these are very superficial. They're easy to get to. But regardless, I think it's important to think about at least making sure that your dog's ID is current and active, and in the case of a microchip, is registered. So I hope that they are able to find their pet. I did get a lot of calls, people wanting the medications. Sometimes it's as easy as giving them some diphenhydramine, Benadryl, which has some sedative properties. Otherwise, it's Valium, it's Xanax, it's acepromazine, any of the drugs we use. And I've also encouraged people, and we've talked about it before, to think about the CALMS vest, the CALMZ vest. I've had great success. And just mind you, when it comes to things like this, there is no one medication. There is no one device. There is nothing that's going to be 100% effective. So dogs are all different. The bases for their anxiety and stress are often different. So we have no idea, which one will your pet respond to. But the best thing, you have to go with things that are hugely successful in the mass market when many, many dogs are tested. And if you get something that's showing 80% efficacy, that's pretty darn good. So I would go with it. Yes, your dog might be in one of the 20% that it doesn't work, but it's still worth a shot to go for it. And understand with things like anxiety, fear, and stress, phobias, there are so many different ones that a device or a medication could work for one of them, but not for the other in the same dog. So really just, go easy, take your time. Last week, we didn't get a chance to get into it, but I did get a request, an email from Blake, who wanted to know what he can do to clean his dog's ears at home. And there are a number of ways. Let's get some things straight. I don't like putting rubbing alcohol inside an ear. Rubbing alcohol is great to clean, to disinfect intact skin. We often use it as one of our steps when we're doing a surgical scrub. But it is very potentially damaging to raw or open skin. And since down in the ear, when a dog has an ear infection and there's goop and you want to clean it, you don't know. You can't see what's going on down there. So my recommendation is do not use rubbing alcohol. How about peroxide? Peroxide is safer. It's okay for open, even though, interestingly, we always used to, moms used to use hydrogen peroxide to clean your little cuts and scrapes. Now that practice is sort of disappearing. It's not as good as they used to think it was. It's not dangerous. It's not going to hurt, but it may not help. But one thing about that I hesitate using hydrogen peroxide in a dog's ear is that, as you know, as we've talked about before, the canals and how long the vertical canal is, and it goes into a short turn, into a short horizontal canal. Well, guess what? When you get the bubbles forming in those, you ever get like soap left in your ear and you're getting out of the shower and you still have the soap in there, the bubbles are popping. It drives you kind of nuts, doesn't it? Well, that's what peroxide does in here. So I don't think it's too comfortable to use that. You can dilute it 50-50 with water. Basically, look, water is H2O and hydrogen peroxide is H2O2. So it's got one more of the oxygen atom. So it's not the end of the world, but I would say, dilute it or don't use it. Best thing to do, you can use some just warm water, not very soapy for the same reason. You can use some Epsom salt solution. You can use a little witch hazel. People using vinegar. But you know what? If you're going to want to do this, it's so easy to go to a pet store, go to your veterinarian. We all sell really good veterinary approved ear cleaning solutions that cut the grease, cut the wax, antibacterial properties, sometimes anti-inflammatory. Use those and vigorously put some in your ear, in the pet's ear, massage it well, liberally. You don't skip. It's not that expensive, and really clean them well. And then I tell people to let, either blow in the ear or kind of back up, just the liquid in the ear. The dog's going to start shaking back and forth. Much of that stuff and the debris will kind of shooting out as they're shaking. And then comes the cotton swab. And you could use the cotton swab. It can be used safely. So just make sure you talk to your veterinarian where to put it, but it's not the end of the world. So anyway, Blake, if you have any questions, you can always reach me back. But that's the way I just like brushing pets' teeth, I think trimming nails, ear cleaning, brushing teeth, and just combing and brushing should be part of routine home care for your pets. We had a dog come in last week that was so badly matted. And what happens with mats is once they start to mat, most owners don't know what to do. They don't cut them out because you're going to inevitably you're going to cut the skin. Don't cut them out. You got to use a dematting comb. There are ways to do it properly, or you have to go in for professional grooming. But if you wait too long, even the professional groomers can't do it. So what do you have to do? What's the logical choice? These dogs have to be shaved down. And as we discussed, not always a good idea to shave a dog down. Sometimes, unfortunately, when the coat loses its good quality, it has to be done. So anyway, just keep in mind that thorough grooming, regular grooming, toenails, ears, and brushing teeth are all essential things that you can do at home on a regular basis to keep your pets healthy. Now, as far as toenails, again, you're better off. First of all, you want to start playing with dogs' nails. They don't have to cut them. Just touch them and play them and give a lot of reward. Good boy, good girl, maybe a little food treat. Almost every day. When you start trimming, get the appropriate type nail clipper for your pet, depending on size. But it's also important, don't clip too much. You are better off doing it twice as much, but taking off half as much each time you clip. All right? When you run into problems with these dogs that object so terribly to having their nails done is when they have been cut too short at one point in their little lives. They remember the pain, because when you cut too short, you are obviously going to cut the nerve and the blood supply. That's the quick. And they remember. We know how much dogs remember. We've talked about it here on the show. They have amazing memories, especially when it comes to their own pain and well-being. And that's why it's very important to not trim them too much. Don't cut that quick. You're better off cutting off less and just doing it again a few days later than trying to do too much at once. Occasionally, the nails will have to be done professionally by a veterinarian, where we have to sedate the dogs. And the quick is extended so long into the nail that all the nails need to be cut back. We have to do this a lot in Dobermans, but many dogs have this. But for some reason, Dobies, we see it a lot. And we have to trim the nails back. So we wait till we have to do their teeth, some other procedure when they're completely anesthetized. Then we will cut the nails back, cauterize the tips so they stop bleeding. And then basically you're starting from scratch again when the nails are very short. So a couple of things first of all, we're getting ready for a break. So I'd like to hear from you, 877-385-8882. I'd like to know how your 4th of July was, how your pets fared, and what you did or didn't do to help that along. Did you train beforehand? Did you use medication? Why don't you share your stories with us? And that way we can all learn from you for next year as well. So anyway, don't go away. We'll be right back here at Pet Life Radio's Ask the Vets with Dr. Jeff. See you in a minute.
We'll be right back, right after these messages. Stay tuned.
Tired of wasting money on giant bags, boxes, and jugs of litter that don't last? Switch to World's Best Cat Litter, the only litter that lets you use less and get more. World's Best Cat Litter uses the concentrated power of corn to deliver outstanding odor control and easy cleanup. It's lightweight, 99% dust-free, and pet, people, and planet friendly. It's even flushable. Make the switch to World's Best Cat Litter and save $2. Visit www.saveonworldsbest.com.
Molly, here's your dinner. Zeus, that's not your food.
Don't let that happen to your precious cat. Elevate your cat's eating experience with the Cat Tree Tray. The Cat Tree Tray keeps your cat's food off the floor and conveniently located on the cat tree. It's the perfect way to eat. It's a beautiful wrought iron tray that easily attaches to your cat tree and keeps dogs and other critters out of your cat's dish. A must for multi-pet households. There's a 6-inch tray for large bowls and a 4-inch tray for smaller bowls. Purchase your Cat Tree Tray today. Go right now to cattreetray.com. That's cattreetray.com. CATTREETRAY.com.
When I adopted her, she was a mess. Scabs, itching, licking, missing fur, hot spots, a thin, dull coat. So I take the dog to the vet for the standard run-of-the-mill tests and treatments. No results. I hear your advertisement on the radio.
DINOVITE.com.
859-428-1000.
So I get the 5-pound box of Dinovite and the Lico Chops within a 4-week total. Instead of a German Shedder, I have a German Shepherd. Sheba is 105 lean pounds of shiny, smooth, happy dog for life because she gets fed Dinovite. And the results, they're just incredibly outstanding. And she loves it. When you rescue a dog, you have to do the right thing. You've got to feed him right for life. Do the Dinovite. Dinovite for life.
859-428-1000.
DINOVITE.com.
Let's talk pets
Let's talk pets
on Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
And welcome back. You're here live with Dr. Jeff Werber here on Pet Life Radio's Ask the Vets. Once again, we want to hear from you, 877-385-8882, or join us live. Go on to PetLifeRadio.com, click on the Ask the Vets with Dr. Jeff tab, scroll down and click on the Google Hangouts link. That's how I got here. And here, would love to hear from you. So anyway, again, give us a holler. Just curious to know how your July 4th was, what you did, what tricks you did, and how your pets were. As I said, mine were great, but I don't know. I've never had pets. One of the things I think it is that I've always have had multiple pets, and I have a lot of dogs. I have my 4 right now. As many of you know, I had to say goodbye to Grover a couple of weeks ago. My 16-year-old Labrador, amazing. But I had my son here with his 2 dogs, and so 6 dogs here, and they were all just great. But they've always been like such a pack that I think they take care of each other. And they're always with each other. So they just look at this like noise in the background. They kind of tune it out, kind of like I do, and it's kind of crazy. It's funny. My dad was in my office once, and we're sitting and talking in an exam room. And it's a typical day at the hospital. It's kind of busy, crazy, and a lot of animals and a lot of noise. And all of a sudden, he goes, "Does this drive you nuts?" In the middle of a conversation. I said, "What do you mean? What drives me nuts?" He goes, "Shut up and listen." So I listen, and I hear all the dogs in the background. He goes, "Doesn't that drive you crazy?" I said, "It's so funny. We just tune it out. It's so normal. It's like the background noise. It just becomes part of the day." The only thing we can hear is, and anyone who's worked around dogs knows this, or there is a different type of vocalization when it comes to like pain. Like if a dog gets stuck in a cage or something happens to it. And my whole staff, myself included, we will run to the runs or wherever we hear it coming from. It's so bizarre how regular barking noise, you just know it's just part of them. But you can always hear that unique vocalization, and that's what we respond to. Anyway, just a little bit in the news. I'll stuff that's been going on. I love to peruse the AHA, American Animal Hospital Association, the American Veterinary Medical Association news feeds. So weeks and weeks ago, we talked about a food recall, Ebinger's, good food, but had to recall food because of this phenobarbital contamination. How phenobarbital got into food, how it's even in the factory, I have no idea. So they started doing spot tests, and foods that passed donate for free to shelters. And they stepped in and they would not allow the food to be given to shelters because they said that the spot testing isn't good enough. And there was 1 death from the contaminated food. And even though it was freebie and they didn't want to throw all this food away, most of this food was probably good. But they said no, they were not allowed to donate the food to shelters. That's kind of a drag. 2 more states, Washington and Massachusetts, have now been identifying West Nile virus diseases in humans, and Mississippi just had its 2nd death from West Nile virus. So that's a problem. What else? Oh, AVMA statement, duh. It is never leave your dog unattended in a parked car. How many times have we talked about this? And yet, when an agency has to come out and give us a warning like that, what does it tell you? People aren't listening. It blows my mind. How can you, think about it. I did the study years ago. Doing this, I was the veterinarian for Home Show on ABC. And so I was doing my regular spot, weekly spot, and we decided to do a test. We did a time-lapse photography. We put one of those big poolside thermometers in the back of a car, cracked the windows, and parked it in the shade, but outside. And it was like 80, 85 degree day. Within 14 minutes, we got temperatures of 110 degrees. Now, what's weird, and it goes to show, years later, AVMA did their own study. They took an 85-degree weather. They said, if you have a car parked in 85-degree weather with the windows closed, just cracked, not all the way open, the car will reach 100 degrees. So give it 4 more minutes, there's my 10 extra degrees. So our study was pretty good. And that was 15, 18 years ago, 20 years ago. So really, that tells you people are still doing it. And it blows my mind. Back to mosquitoes. Not West Nile. It could be a lot of different diseases, but apparently the Northeast in this spring has had tremendous, one of the almost set a record. They were like 3rd or 4th most rainfall during spring in the Northeast. And there's major concern now because there's a huge increase in the number of mosquitoes seen. And interestingly, I get these questions all the time, depending on where you live. What about heartworm prevention? Your pets need to be on heartworm prevention. It's a must. And Southern Cal, a lot of mosquitoes. My dogs are on prevention because in my yard I do see mosquitoes, but it's a problem. And you should, again, even though your pets are checked at least once every other year, if not once a year, for heartworm. And the reason to do this is not just to make sure, but from a practical standpoint, most of the products out there are guaranteed. And if a dog on one of these heartworm preventative products should come down with heartworm disease, the manufacturers will step up to the plate and cover the cost of treatment. If you can't prove, however, that your pet not only has been on the medication, but once a year tested negative, then they're going to say, well, look, we can't show, of course, like any insurance company, Trust me, as of last test, which was a year ago, whatever it was, or several months ago, my pet tested negative. So that's a good thing to have on record. They found more cases of the H3N2 influenza virus. That number is now up to 82 cases reported and 4 deaths in dogs. So most likely, if 82 cases have been reported, there are way more that were not reported because maybe at the time they didn't realize it was that virus. They thought it was another respiratory problem and responded to treatment. So it never got to the point of being reported. So there are cases out there. If you're in Florida, for example, I would consider getting the new vaccine. But many of the doggy daycare boarding facilities are now requiring that vaccine, just like they do distemper parvo and rabies and bordetella. And if you live in an area where this is becoming more and more popular, more and more endemic, it might not be a bad idea. Anyway, thank you for joining us here on Pet Life Radio's Ask the Vets. Thanks to our sponsors, Bravecto, More Than a Cone, Save the Life Microchip. And if you have any questions during the week, something comes up, a problem you're having with your pet, you just want a little more information about, maybe a little guidance, there's been giving you some choices of where to go, what to do, please get a hold of me at drjeff, Dr. Jeff at PetLifeRadio.com, and be happy to answer your questions. Leave me a phone number. We'll call you. Otherwise, I will talk about your case, if it's appropriate, next week on the show. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll be here same time next week.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.